Through these months of the pandemic, we have all been much reduced, physically, emotionally, socially, financially, and so on it goes. We are much reduced, even in this celebration. Compared to what the Feast of Mary MacKillop normally is, this is very reduced. Still good, but very reduced. We can feel a little like the widow visited by the prophet Elijah, struggling not just to make ends meet, but struggling to survive, and very uncertain indeed about the future. Jesus says to us, don't worry. Well, that's fine for Jesus, but it's not so simple for us, because we do worry. He says, don't worry about what you eat and drink and wear. Well, we do. He says, don't worry about the future, and we're even more anxious about that. What kind of future lies beyond COVID-19? The Prime Minister said recently that the world that awaits us beyond the pandemic will be poorer, more dangerous, and more disorderly. And yet Jesus says, don't worry. The words are strange, but they were words of Christ that Mary MacKillop understood in the most profound and extraordinary way. Because, you see, Mary MacKillop in her life was also much reduced, even brought low, as we have been by the pandemic. She was much reduced by many things. Hard work, for which the Sisters of St. Joseph have always been renowned, each of them being in their own way a portrait of their founder. Hard work and the living of poverty. Mary MacKillop actually took poverty seriously. It's one of the reasons why she didn't want to teach music. It was all a bit too fancy. And the sisters have known genuine poverty, not just evangelical poverty, I might add, but at times, certainly in the past, grinding poverty. Mary MacKillop was reduced by the treatment she received from people like bishops. One thinks of Bishop Quinn here in Brisbane, the first bishop, who booted her out of the diocese. Not a bad effort, is it, to boot out a saint? But it wasn't just James Quinn. Mary MacKillop received even rougher treatment from Bishop Shiel of Adelaide, who didn't just boot her out, he actually excommunicated her. That's an even better effort. Mary was reduced by the sad conflict with Father Julian Tennyson Woods, to whom she was so close, and to whom she would have said she owed so much. Mary was also reduced, brought low at times, by some of her sisters who were very difficult. Well, there's no surprise in that. And then she was also brought low by ill health, particularly as she got older. So for these and for many other reasons, Mary MacKillop knew what it was to be much reduced. She mightn't have known COVID-19, but she knew what it was on the human journey to be brought low. And that's another reason why we celebrate her as one of us, not just because she's an Australian, that does matter, but also because she knew in the run of her own life so much of what is true of our journey, particularly in a time of COVID-19 with its gloomy landscape. Now, all of this may have reduced her and brought her low, and in some ways it should have destroyed her. But the fact of the matter is that none of that did destroy her. On the contrary, it was all of that that reduced her, that made her a saint, and made her the radiantly human being that she most certainly was. You can't be a great saint without being a great human being. And you can't be a great human being unless all that you suffer turns strangely creative, as it did for her. What should have destroyed Mary MacKillop, in fact, created her, made her what she was and what she is. The same, I think, was extraordinarily true of someone like John Paul II. I saw it working with him, close up. If you read his story too, so much in his early life should have destroyed him as it destroyed so many others. The horrors of fascism, the horrors of communism, and so on it goes. But where it destroyed many others, it created him as the radiantly human being and the saint that he has become. This mysterious rhythm of that which should destroy creating, you see in the letters of Mary MacKillop. She was a great letter writer. And one of many examples are these words that she writes to Father Tennyson Woods in September of 1871. This was when her troubles with Bishop Shiel were at their full pitch. She was going through one of the most difficult times in her life. And yet what she writes to Tennyson Woods is this: what matter all these little things, she calls them? What do they matter if we can but keep to the sweet holy will of our good God and turn these crosses to his glory and our own good? I am not a bit discouraged. And what's more, so clearly see the hand of God in all that is now happening to us. I feel calm and tranquil, and so near our dear good God. I give myself and all into his adorable hands, and am perfectly confident that he will both direct and guide us all. Those words could sound like a kind of whistling in the dark, but they're not. They are the words of what the opening prayer of the Mass called a woman of faith, trusting in the kind of providence of which Jesus has spoken in the Gospel we have heard. In other words, the Paschal mystery, death and resurrection, took root in the life of Mary MacKillop, and that's what made her a saint, and makes her a saint forever and for every land. In the Gospels that tell the story of the resurrection, there is the mention of Mary Magdalene going to the tomb on Easter morning, and she is accompanied by a mysterious figure who is simply called the Other Mary. We don't really know who the Other Mary was, but I like to think that it was Mary MacKillop, metaphorically. So Mary MacKillop shares with every saint that she went early one morning on the first day of the week to the tomb, looking for the one who had been crucified, Mary of the Cross. But in searching for the crucified, she found the one who was risen from the dead, the one who is the love stronger than death. She saw him. She heard him on that morning, the other Mary, and therefore she could see him and hear him everywhere, even in the torments meted out by Bishop Shield. So, before all else and beyond all else, Mary MacKillop, the other Mary, stands forever as a witness to the resurrection, as a seed of infinite hope in this driest of continents. St. Mary of the Cross will stand forever with St. Mary Magdalene in the morning light, coming to Jesus, who had first come to them, taking hold of his feet, worshipping him, and teaching others to do the same.